Hello everyone. Today we are with Mr. Bhuvan Srinivasan, and Mr. Bhuvan Srinivasan is the CBO, the Chief Business Officer of UltraHuman. As you all know, UltraHuman is working towards something that causes something great in health. But we'll talk about this later on. And Mr. Bhuvan will only tell us about this. I'll not explain you what UltraHuman does. So primarily, how you, sir?
Good, very good. Thank you for having me.
Like he's thankful for having him on stage, but I'm definitely feeling his energy and I'm feeling great as well sitting next to him. Mr. Bhuman, first of all, I would like to ask you, since you're a biomedical engineer and you have a background of all these things as well, first of all, I would like to ask you about the metabolic health, since I saw you speaking earlier about metabolism and how it could impact the overall health of a person. So, what is the role of metabolism in health, first of all?
Sure. So what we call metabolism is basically the body's ability to use energy,
Right,
right? So every cell in your body needs energy to perform basic functions.
right,
Your brain needs energy, your muscles need energy.
right,
So that regulation of that mechanism to extract energy from your food, store it, reuse it, that whole cycle is called metabolism.
right,
And the issues we face, for example, chronically, people don't have enough energy. Oh, I'm tired.
right,
I'm putting on weight.
right,
I developed pre-diabetes or diabetes over time.
right,
Perhaps I developed a tumor which is insulin resistant.
right,
Right. So these are all captured under metabolic health. So actually,
right.
it is the foundation for a lot of other health systems in your body, including your heart, your brain, all of that stuff.
So it combines each and everything that is in your body, right?
Yeah, literally, it impacts every cell in your body.
Right. So, sir, since you are the CBO of UltraHuman, what step are you taking forward towards like making a good metabolism for people,
Sure.
making awareness about this to people,
Sure.
and giving the right education to people about this?
Sure. So we felt that, look, there are a lot of tools right now that people can use, right? So, for example, there are very highly qualified nutritionists.
Right.
There are very, very good gyms that are available.
Right.
There are health apps, logging apps, and so on that are available.
Right.
But somehow things keep getting worse.
Right.
People talk about obesity getting worse in
Right.
India. People talk about diabetes getting worse in
Right.
India. So we said, look, why don't we try something different? We didn't
Right.
want to do one more of the same,
Right.
because those tools didn't seem to be that effective. So we said, look, what can we do?
Right.
So we started with the premise that the core of this is habit change.
Right.
Why did we have that? It was because a lot of studies have shown that if you're able to lose weight, sleep better, etc.,
Right.
your metabolism gets better and better.
Right.
You will lose weight. You will likely reduce your chances of getting diabetes and all of that.
Right.
So how do we change somebody's habits?
Right.
So we said, let's start with wearables,
Uh-huh.
because wearables can figure out what your lifestyle is.
Right.
Are you active? Are you sleeping well? What are you eating? So using wearables, we figure out what your lifestyle is.
Like an Apple smartwatch.
Like a smartwatch, we use also. We have a ring that we have. We have a
Is
glucose
it a
sensor.
smart ring?
It's a smart ring.
How does it diagnose each and everything?
So it's got a bunch of sensors. You can see on the inside. It's got lots of tiny sensors.
Right.
So it's almost invisible, right? Like you're wearing a
Yeah.
normal ring. I'm wearing a smart ring.
Yeah.
It's almost,
And it's smart as well. Like
Yeah.
the style is also good.
so it's very undercover,
Right.
in that sense.
Right.
So you can wear this. Nobody is going to know what you're doing
Mhm.
unless you tell them about it.
Mhm.
So the idea is you have a bunch of sensors that figure out what your lifestyle is,
Right.
and then we tell you, okay, look, for you, sleep is the problem.
Right.
You need to sleep better. Perhaps these are the things you could try.
Right.
For me, it could be food. I
Right.
need to eat better.
Right.
For somebody else, it could be you're not active enough. So we'll try to figure out for you what is that intervention, because I think we all get bombarded with too much stuff.
Mhm.
You should sleep 8 hours. You should eat less carbs. You should be more active. You should meditate. Who has time to do all of those things?
Right, of course.
Just changing one habit in itself
Mhm.
takes forever,
Mhm.
right? So we said, okay, let's focus on one thing at a time. But what is that one thing? We'll figure out through wearables. Then we'll help you do that. Make that.
Right. So, do we have other series of variables like this ring and others? And what vitals does it monitor?
Sure. So we have a glucose monitor
Mhm.
that you put on your arm.
Right.
That helps you figure out your food. The ring helps you figure out your activity levels, sleep, heart rate, recovery.
Right.
It's an important topic. Temperature over time.
Right.
So those are some of the things that the ring.
So the one that you told me about earlier, that measures our food. So, sir, what, like, when you talk that measures your food, what is it exactly? The food energy, the food components, or the levels of energy that you want in the food?
Sure.
What does it exactly do?
What it's measuring is the change of your blood glucose or your glucose in your body
After you have
after
food.
you eat
Right,
something.
right, right.
Now the interesting part is every cell in your body uses glucose.
Right,
So your brain needs a steady level of glucose.
Uh-huh.
If glucose is going up and down, you will find it hard to concentrate.
right,
When you're exercising, you also need glucose. So again, if your glucose is going up and down, you find it difficult to exercise.
right,
Similarly, your sleep. If your
Right.
glucose levels are not good, you'll have trouble with good sleep.
right,
When people, so somebody in Gurgaon called me up and said, "Hey, I was in traffic and my glucose level spiked. Am I normal?
right,
It's something wrong with me."
right,
So actually, even stress will change your glucose levels
Right.
because it's that fight or flight.
uh-huh.
Like suddenly you get cortisol released,
right,
so that your body is primed for action.
right,
But if you do that chronically, if you're
Right.
always sitting in traffic, that's actually bad for you. You're going to
Right.
have a heart attack sooner or later.
right, right, right,
So what we use is we use glucose to figure out all of these things.
right,
The example you talked about is food, right? So
Right.
we had a person who said, "Look, I love idlis. I figured out that instead of eating 4 idlis,
Mhm.
I can't give up idlis."
Right.
So I went to a nutritionist. She said, "Give up idlis." I
Right.
can't give up idlis. But your device helped me figure out that instead of eating 4 idlis, 2 is good enough, and my glucose stays in range.
right, right, right,
And the rest of my food I can fill out.
uh-huh.
You can figure out, okay, if I eat fiber first, then protein, then fat, then carbs,
right,
you'll see that your glucose remains stable,
right,
as opposed to if you're eating your carbs first.
right, right, right,
So there's so many of these hacks or biohacks, as we
Mhm.
call them,
Mhm.
that you will discover for yourself.
Mhm.
Now the cool part is what works for you is not going to work for me, because
Of
your
course, of
genetics
course,
are different,
of course.
your microbiome is different, your activity levels
In
are
short,
different.
our metabolism is
Our
different.
metabolism is different. So
Right.
you will, through a sensor like this, you will figure out what do you need to do.
Right.
And the app will make a list of those things, and then you can sort of modify your life
So you display on this on an app.
on an app.
So this app comes with a subscription, or do you sell the subscription along with the wearables as well?
If you buy the wearable, the app comes with it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's how it works.
Okay. And since you're a biomedical engineer, I've heard biomedical engineers working on X-ray machines, MRI machines, on technologies basically like this. So how did you land up into UltraHuman?
So I was working on continuous glucose monitors 20 years ago.
Right.
So these were invented in 1999
Mm-hmm.
by Medtronic,
Right.
and I was working at Medtronic in 2005. So a
Right.
few years after they were invented.
Right.
And then I went and did all the other stuff. I did consulting, private equity, all of that stuff.
Right.
And I wanted to come back to tech,
Right.
and I wanted to do startups. So last year started looking around at what's out there, what's interesting,
Right.
and found that this sensor, which was previously only used for type 1 diabetics.
Right.
So they have, I'll give you some US statistics. In the US, there are 3 million type 1 diabetics.
Right.
There are 33 million overall diabetics.
Okay.
In India, there are 77 million overall diabetics, probably 2 or 3 times that pre-diabetics and obese folks. We are using that technology, which was originally developed only for a few million people,
Okay.
and bringing it to hundreds of millions of people.
Right.
So that is the aim that we're trying to achieve.
Right.
To achieve that, there's a bunch of things. The data is the same; it's
Right.
measuring glucose,
Right.
but we're trying to push habit change, which
Right.
is not what somebody
Right.
has used this for before. So that is the whole,
Idea.
R&D and the innovation that we're doing.
Right.
Then on top of that, we have the ring, which obviously helps to cement those habits. So if one of the habits you need to make is be more active, move more,
Right.
the ring will help you monitor that.
Once you'll monitor
Remind
that you
you.
are getting lazy, you will yourself get
Yeah,
fast.
so it's sort of like a report card and a cheerleader.
Right. 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 Right.
So
right,
if you're not doing well, it'll tell you, okay, you have to do well, you have to make up for it.
Right.
And if you're doing well, it'll say, good job. So it's using both.
It's a blend of both.
Yeah.
And if someone has to reach you to get these devices or to get the app subscription, how can they reach you?
Just go to ultrahuman.com.
Right.
That's the easiest way. Everything is there.
Everything is there. Everything is listed
Download,
there.
Yeah, you could download the app from the
And
Play
what all
Store.
markets are you in? India
Today we're in India and the UAE.
and the UAE.
We will expand to other countries in the GCC and then probably US and Europe.
So first of all, your expansion will be in Gulf Country Council completely, and then you'll target the English countries and European countries.
Yeah.
So that is a good thing to
That's the idea.
here. And the last question I would like to ask you is, since you are also an innovator yourself,
Yeah.
right? So there are many young innovators listening to us.
Sure.
Like in the end of every podcast, we
Sure.
ask our speaker
Yeah.
to give them some advice that they should like they should follow
Sure.
to follow their passion.
Yeah.
Because in India, following passion is following death ultimately. Because no one supports you,
Yeah.
right? So we want to change the habit of Indians.
Sure.
We want them to make more startups, go for their passion,
Sure.
do more innovation. So what is that one thing you would like to tell them?
I would say, there is this Japanese concept called ikigai.
Ikigai.
I don't know if you've heard of this.
I have not.
There are two ends of the spectrum. One is, your parents, back in the day, your parents saying you have to be a doctor or an engineer or
Right.
whatever, right? And so you do that because you need to make money,
Right.
and that's you work sort of, you work to make money, and
Right.
the rest of it, who cares?
Right.
And then the other concept is do what your heart tells you to do.
Right.
Both of them are extremes. Like in my view, either doing one or the other is just as bad.
Right.
Because ultimately you do have responsibilities. If you are 40 years old and you have a wife and kid to support, and yet you don't have a stable income, that's a tremendous source of stress.
Right.
I'm 40 years old, by the way.
Right.
So that's
Right.
what I'm saying. If I didn't feel comfortable with where I was, I would be extremely stressed, right?
Of course.
I would not be able to follow my passion.
Of course.
So the Japanese concept of ikigai basically tries to integrate some of these things.
Mhm.
It says, do what is what you want to do,
Mhm.
do where you can make money,
Mhm.
do something that is useful for the world,
Right.
and I forget the fourth quadrant, but it
Right.
basically tries to put those two together.
Right.
So it's a thing that you sort of workshop with yourself. Okay, what are those things? If it can't only be just one of these things, right?
Right.
If I leave today and become a climate activist, I'm not making money and it's not my passion either.
Right.
Maybe it's good for the world,
Right.
but that's another extreme.
Right,
So
that's another extreme.
don't seek the extremes. Seek where the few things can come together. Otherwise, you will really have trouble sustaining it longer term.
Right. And one more question I would like to ask you.
Sure.
I told you that last question was the last question, but it was not. So since the name of the company is UltraHuman,
Sure.
did you name it after yourself? Because you do not look 40 to me at all. you look 30, 32 at most.
No, it's not named after me. It's actually the founders picked that name when they started it. What we are really trying to do is ultimately, unfortunately, healthcare is very boring.
Right.
Healthcare is not very motivating.
Right.
It's scary. It's
never,
scary.
never.
People don't want to go to hospital. It's
Right.
a scary
Of course.
place.
Of course.
So what we want to actually promote is the other way around. Look, instead of waiting for illness or sickness before you try to
Prevention.
better yourself, start bettering yourself today.
Right.
We know so much about the human body. We can help you become, from a human
Right.
to an ultra-human.
Right.
That way, you will enjoy your life today. You will enjoy
Right.
your life in 10 years. You'll enjoy your kids' life. You'll enjoy
Right.
your grandkids' life. So, isn't that a better outcome?
Of course it is.
Rather
Of course
than
it is.
waiting to fall sick. So
Right.
I think that's.
But you can keep yourself as a brand ambassador, showing those rings and saying that I monitor my vitals. That is why I look like this.
I think you have to live the brand. I think ultimately you have to live the brand. People have to see the excitement in your eyes.
Of course.
Otherwise, they're not going to buy it.
Of course. So that was a lovely time speaking to Dr. Bhuvan and Mr. Bhuvan, sorry,
Yeah.
not Dr.
Thank you.
Bhuvan. So that was a lovely time speaking to Mr. Bhuvan, and I hope that UltraHuman grows, and you also guys listen to this, because ultimately prevention is always better than cure. Thank you, Mr. Bhuvan, for having
Thank you so
being
much.
with us,
Thank you
and
so much.
take care, stay healthy.
Thank you.